I mean, so choreography is a really good word here. There is a sort of delicate dance going on after the president telegraphed his plans well in advance and then sort of tried to gauge what the potential reaction would be. U.S. carried out those strikes and then afterwards had a bunch of U.S. officials go on TV and say, hey, listen, this was a limited strike. It was aimed at the nuclear program, not against Iran writ large. Then Iran feels it needs to retaliate, and then it wants to sort of, for its domestic audience, portray this as a very big, overwhelming response. But then the indication we're getting from Qatar and elsewhere is, as you mentioned, this was telegraphed well in advance. It targeted a base that had been largely evacuated of valuable U.S. military assets. So a symbolic show of force, but it looks like when you dig a little bit, actually, the Iranian desire was not to cause too much damage. So the interpretation there is, okay, now they want to push toward a potential new conversation with the U.S. They want an off-ramp. Two complicating factors to that. One is, of course, that Iran and Israel are still engaged in tit-for-tat exchanges, so that conflict hasn't ended. The other is, which we don't know, is this the end? Is Iran planning further attacks? They haven't issued a statement to say, hey, we're done here, let's move on.
Right, that's a really good point. I mean, they did say proportionately and decisively. This doesn't seem proportional to attacks on 3 of its nuclear facilities. I think it doesn't take a nuclear scientist to make that conclusion, Nick. You know, I was thinking about this over the weekend. Other presidents have had the opportunity to strike Iran's nuclear targets. Did they avoid it because of fears of retaliation?
Yeah, I mean, I think there were a lot of questions there, the reasons why they avoided it. I mean, it was seen as too risky, potentially in terms of retaliation by Iran. The other question is a matter of efficacy, and one thing we don't know about these strikes, how much they actually obliterated the Iranian nuclear program, as President Trump claimed. So there is a potential unintended consequence, which is you drive Iran's nuclear program deeper underground, both figuratively and literally. So does this produce the outcome you want? The other is obviously, well, what are the third, fourth, fifth order consequences of this, the unknown unknowns that we don't know about? You look at the Iraq War, 2003, folks thought, okay, we were going to be greeted as liberators when U.S. troops went in there, and then you look at what a mess everything became, the rise of the Islamic State, et cetera. So the question is this something Trump can just do and then get out, or does this lead to a whole new conflict, the likes of which we just can't imagine right now?
Well, Nick, on a global security basis, I mean, what are the implications and kind of optics of the U.S. actually getting involved, right? You know, it's one thing if they're behind the scenes and helping out and supporting, but they're involved.
Right, and you know, there are the first order consequences, the issue of what the potential Iranian retaliation might be in the future, what this actually does to Iran's nuclear program. But then you have the other element, which is the United States just attacked a sovereign country, even though the U.S. intelligence community assessed that there was no imminent threat to the U.S. So you could call this deterrence or a preventive strike, but is it, you know, was it too precipitous? When you have a country like the U.S. that essentially says, hey, we're going to uphold this global order and then condemn a country like Russia for an attack on a sovereign country, i.e. Ukraine, what does that do to U.S. legitimacy and questions around U.S. authority when it goes after a sovereign country like Iran? You know, there's a concern that it's essentially opening up a Pandora's box,
Right.
and maybe opening it up to other countries doing the same thing.